Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur Strip with X.T.C.
I'm Shalonda.
I'm Tristan.
And I'm Chris. So as an entrepreneur starting and growing your business, you may have a destination, but the journey of getting there can be a trip. We want to be your travel companions and inject a dose of X.T.C. as we explore real-life conversations about navigating the world of entrepreneurship in the US and the Caribbean. So right now we are on season 1, series 2, episode 3 within that series, which is and the series is the mindset and motivations of being an entrepreneur. And this episode is about external environment, feasibility, economics and profit, and third-party opinions, which we all get a lot of those as entrepreneurs and people wanting to start being entrepreneurs. So to start off with feasibility and understanding mindset, I want to start off with a quote that by an entrepreneur, particularly a male entrepreneur, not to be better than a female entrepreneur, but a famous one is Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. And he's famously quoted and controversially quoted as saying, that some people say, give the customers what they want, but that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do. I think Henry Ford once
Mm.
said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's why I
True.
never rely on market research. Our task is to read things that are not yet on the page. So, a lot of people in the business world have taken that as, well, you don't need a feasibility study or to find out if your business is feasible because, well, if you listen to the customers, then you're not going to do something as innovative as Steve Jobs did with Apple and with the iPod and iPhones and things like that. However, uh, the Small Business Administration, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and their steps to becoming an entrepreneur and starting a business, their very first step mentions conducting market research. And the SBA explains that market research will tell you if there's an opportunity to turn your idea into a successful business. It's a way to gather information about potential customers and businesses already operating in your area. Use that information to find a competitive advantage for your business. So I think what I want to talk about just with that is that I believe Steve Jobs' quote is often misunderstood, and not
Mhm.
saying that you don't need a feasibility study, because his very last line in his quote was, or in the SBA quote, is to use that information to find a competitive advantage for your business. And whereas Steve Jobs is saying that you need to identify the gaps in the market research or the gaps uh, in your customer's life to fill those gaps essentially, and put those things that are not yet on the page for them. So
Mhm.
when it comes to feasibility, I just want to say that, and personally, I did not do this as an entrepreneur. I took the Steve Jobs approach and took that quote literally and didn't look at the the in between the lines of it. But really, Steve Jobs had to have done market research in order to find the gaps, because you
Mhm.
have to know your customer, know what their lives are like, what they're doing in their lives to understand that there is a need that is not being met in it. So I just kind of wanted to first open that part up to the group before we get into the other ones and see if you guys had any thoughts with your business experience in terms of what you did to identify your feasibility, or if you were like me and kind of jumped in without doing that part. And you know, I've had to track backwards because I skipped that part. So anybody want to chime in?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in. I think as entrepreneurs, as you were talking, it reminds me of when we had Semi on the podcast, right? And she talked about how she started our business out of survival,
Mm-hmm.
right? During the recession. I think a lot of entrepreneurs start their businesses out of similar circumstances, right? There's something that is external, there's just external pressure for them to do something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And an innate desire to create some type of change. And so when you talk about a feasibility study, I think that abstractly and conceptually, we have an idea of what's in our market, right? We kind of feel it. It's like kind of intuitive. Um, but it's important to do that feasibility study, because through the process of doing a feasibility study, then you determine whether or not that particular market really needs what it is you think it needs, or maybe you need to calibrate your offerings so that you have that competitive advantage, right? So I think that it's a combination of intuition, but it is definitely a matter of research. And you know me, I'm like, do my research and then try to apply it and figure it out. But I think part of in that process of doing a feasibility, you don't want to get analysis paralysis, because some people will just stay there and analyze and never apply or activate. So it really is a delicate balance of, okay, this is what I see in the market. Let me do my research to confirm or adjust what I think I should be offering, and then pull the trigger, right? To be able to run the business as such. So
Tristan, any thoughts?
Yes. First thought, I'm not going after Shalanda again. Like, we gotta work on this because I help you out. I try to push you before her, Chris. Like, I hit you that. Like, how do you follow these acts, man? Analysis paralysis. I was like, damn,
Spitting
I
bars over
suffer
there.
from that. Like, she's already like giving me my prescription. Like, I was like, man, what this was medical tourism. This is what this is. She's like, here, take this trip. I'm like, wow. But great points, Shauna. Like great points. Um, my thoughts about it is that I don't think I took that feasibility approach. And I just want to put a couple things in the context. We talk about being entrepreneurs, and the one thing that's not going to happen is that everybody's not going to start the same way.
mhm.
Um, different walks of life, different perspectives, just completely different concepts. However, the one thing that we do know, and we keep bringing it up, is change, right? So I don't disagree with what it is that Steve Jobs says, and I could see that it could be easily taken out of context.
Mhm.
Because what I think happens right there is that we might not do that feasibility study. However, we have an idea as to what it is that's missing. So in season, well, it was season one, series two, I believe. When I mentioned Steve Jobs, it was somewhat along the same lines because he's an innovator. So
Mhm.
innovators take different approaches.
Mhm.
So when he created the cube, when we referenced it, the cube was just exactly what it was. It was perfectly cubed with no real operating system to it. In his mind, it was like this operating system is going to come. However, I have the body and what it should be, not even should be doing because there was no system. I have the body as to what it is it should look like. So
Mhm.
we're going to figure that part is not me. Somebody else is going to figure that part out. And that's why I think his feasibility approach is and was. It's I look around and I see what it is that we're doing, and I'm thinking about what it is that I could do to make it different, more, lack of a better term, efficient.
Mhm.
Because in my notes, what I wrote was iPod Touch. So how the Touch came about was that his mentor, that they fell out, and his mentor had the idea for the Touch, or just another pocket. I call it pocket pals because they always came with a nexus, so you always had to use two hands,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So Steve Jobs was like, no, I don't like that. I don't like the concept because now I got to pull out a whole different stylus and it's occupying both my hands. So if you ever look at the design for the iPod Touch, he made it a full hand device where you hold it in the palm, but you navigate everything with your thumb. Therefore, your second hand is free. So he wouldn't do a feasibility study on something like that because the feasibility studies would tell you something like, oh, well, we are using these devices. I don't need somebody to tell me that we are using these devices. Um, I just want to know how to innovate. You see what I'm saying? So he kind of just took that part. For me, I
I would
definitely
challenge I would challenge you on something that you're saying,
go ahead. I'm
in
listening.
that he wouldn't have done a feasibility study to transfer from the two-hand approach to the one-hand approach. Because if you look at organizations like that, they are very in tune with what the customer preferences and needs and features in the devices that they would like to have, right?
Right. Can I pause you? So
Sure.
right there is why, like, where I completely agree, because according to that point in time, everybody was agreeing, like the Nexus, everybody came out with a design, the Palm Pilots, everything. All of them had a stylus. Everyone had
Mhm,
a stylus. So you know what they also came with? Instructions. Apple products came with
mhm,
no instructions because
mhm.
not just the fact that you simplified it. So I do think there was a feasibility study. What I'm saying is just the context. So he wouldn't have done a feasibility study to see if you wanted to use your thumb or not. The feasibility study would have just said that these devices are flourishing. So I don't want to say like we don't. It's almost like telling me what it is. I feel like we already know.
Yeah, I,
But I'll let you go and then.
or if you don't mind, I was going to jump in real quick. I think
Yeah.
to connect kind of what we were saying, and where I was going initially with, where I think Steve Jobs' quote is often taken out of context is for the, the Cube computer, for the iPod Touch as a one-hand device, the solution to the problem was
Mhm,
definitely the innovation from Steve Jobs to realize what would fill that gap. But
mhm.
the Cube, I don't believe would have been something he would have conceived if he didn't know that people had a need to connect for personal and business use in ways that
Right.
were, more advanced or different than meeting in
Right.
person, or what was available at the time. And same for even,
Mhm.
the Palm Pilots and everything, all the buttons, the pens, you had entire keyboards on the phone, whereas the iPod touch. So yeah, trending data would say that all those devices were being successful and that people were buying
Right.
more of them. But maybe he was, it's potential that he was looking at customer feedback and stuff of like, oh, it's too hard to set up, it's too
Well,
hard to navigate, and that's where the
but that's
simplicity. Mhm.
also, and that's the beauty of it. Like, and that's what I mean is like sometimes we don't you don't need the feasibility study. I feel like to tell you, Shalonda drinks coffee, so if she was texting away on something else that required both hands, she can't drink coffee and text at the same time. And I think like I think we sometimes overthink the process, and that's where it is. We get lost in a lab analysis paralysis. Boom. You see what I'm saying? Like that's where it goes, is because sometimes we're looking for the data to tell us what it is that the next thing is, when in all actuality, what we're creating really and truly is what it is that I feel like we would like, or we would
Okay,
like to see.
so I'm gonna get all PhD right on you for a second.
Mm.
There is this theory called Bloom's taxonomy in learning where it gives you certain levels that you acquire knowledge, right? You learn
Mhm.
something new to know about it. You learn something new um, to be able to memorize it, maybe for a test or whatever, right? But I think where the feasibility study concept for a business comes in is at that higher level of the Bloom's taxonomy where you're gathering information, right? Or data, and you're analyzing it so that you can synthesize it to create something that's not there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Make sense? So
Um,
every person, so for example, in research, right, a lot of researchers are researching something that's of interest to them. Like for me, work passion is an interest for me, right? So I want to hear what other researchers are talking about, what theories might be out there, what direction the literature is going into, right? But as a PhD candidate, I'm looking at it from a unique perspective, which is my perspective. And I'm looking to see where there may be gaps in the literature, much like a feasibility looks at where may they be gaps in the market that I can fill in a creative and innovative way. And sometimes in that collection of that data and that information, you realize that, oh, wait a minute, somebody else is already doing something similar to what it is that I want to do, but they just don't have the spin on it. But had you not
Right.
done the feasibility study, you wouldn't have known that.
Right. And that's why I think the it's the how we apply it kind of comes into play. So like I was saying, like as an innovator, I don't see him counting on the feasibility study to say that we want to use one hand. It helps us to realize though, like this is, I don't want to say the trending spot. This is where the next thing is going to be. We're now going to start to invest. The future is moving into more pocket computers. That's where I see the feasibility bringing it together. As far as the ingenuity of the one hand, um, like I just think like that's your wow moment. That's the reason why he
Mhm.
would be like, you know, I wouldn't need a feasibility study to tell me I wanted to use one hand to make it more comfortable. Like, and it goes to nature versus nurture, right? Because at that point, that would be his skill set. That would be the skill set that he was possibly born with. Like, right off the bat, he gets that. As opposed to
Mhm.
like for me, I would have to sit there and think about it and think about it. I think in the previous podcast or maybe two back, I gave the example as I did no feasibility study. I just looked at it. I was like, everybody else got a camera, but not everybody edits. You see what I'm saying? So I was like, right off the bat, let me go with the computer because the cameras are in existence. Like there's no need for another camera guy.
Mhm.
Everybody got it. So and that's what it is. I just think the feasibility studies, I don't want to say like it's not a make or break. However, at some point in time, we are gonna do it. You see what I'm saying? It might not be that essential point. To your point, Shalom, like when you were saying about the knowledge with the layers, there's layers to it. Coming back to our onion, the layers. It's that at the beginning, I might have not have known about feasibility studies until this conversation. And I'm like, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa, whoa! I missed a step here. So now I could
Yeah.
go back and I could look at and I could see the other data that people's been collecting, and I'll be like, okay, well, I'll make this step forward. This would be the move that I definitely want to make for put forth. But to me, it's just been with that feasibility study. It's amazing, Chris, that like you said it, and like I said, Shalana's taking it. I was just like, wow, wow, like I just never thought about it in
Well,
that way.
to segue
Mhm.
us here to the next part of economics and profit. So
Mm.
the SBA says that the second step after you've conducted your feasibility study is to write the business plan. Um, and basically,
Can I leave now?
That pesky business plan keeps coming up.
and so your business plan is the foundation.
Fundamental.
Your business plan is the foundation of your business. It's a roadmap for how to structure, run, and grow your business. You'll use it to convince people that working with you or investing in your company is a smart choice. That's how the
Mhm.
SBA defines it. So, um,
Agreed.
the
Could I
business.
start first?
Oh, hold on. I'm still on
Oh,
the
go ahead.
solo.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm still on the solo
Applause.
screen.
Give him an applause,
Right.
please. We have we have moved Tristan over to the dots.
So I think kind of what we were talking about, and Tristan, to your point, the unique application or the figuring out the better mousetrap, the thing that's going to fill the gap, that solution, that's where the business plan comes in. So based on the feasibility study of what does the market look like, what are your target customers doing and acting like, that's not to say you respond to directly what they want, but you now are tasked as the entrepreneur to create the business plan to figure out how you're going to leverage that market data to create again that new piece. So admittedly, again, I'm a host of an entrepreneur's podcast, but I also skipped the business plan phase when I started my business, and that was realistically because I tried to start it, but I didn't have the information to accurately fill the segments of the business plan in. So had I done a feasibility study, I would have had that research to create the business plan that would have, ideally laid a better, more direct framework for how I would have approached things. Because Tristan, you and I are both, in production. So to your point, who needs another videographer? And without a business plan for the first couple of years of my business, I had ended up in the world of being just another videographer. And so it's not till now that I am now going back to the feasibility and going back to the business plan that I'm creating the uniqueness and the value proposition that is different from my competition. So again, the economics, getting into economics and profit. So is it sustainable? Is the market data showing you that you can build a business about it? And taking the Steve Jobs approach, do you have the entrepreneurial vision to create what your customers don't know they need yet?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go after Solana now.
Now you want to go after Solana? I thought you didn't want to follow those acts.
Chris, that was a Stillwater Run Deep moment. That was a Stillwater Run Deep moment. But to start, what I would say is this: is that I do think like it comes down to the knowledge and the knowledge that you start to attain after we take this trip, after we're on this journey, we embark on this journey together, because we're not the only ones on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
So what has a tendency of happening is that now, before I started, I think I did look up something about a business plan, but I didn't understand how it worked. I really, really didn't. The business plan only became more feasible to me in looking to, I didn't want a loan. I wanted to get a credit card for the business. I guess you could call it a loan. But it was just trying to explore different options is where these informations kind of like trickled in.
Mm-hmm.
So a part of it that I would have never really thought about, going back to what we just spoke about, is the feasibility study. Because you just said something again to me that was really empowering. If you had known about the feasibility study, you would have done a feasibility study that would have then helped you to then fill in the information required for what's that thing called again?
Business plan.
Yeah, of the plan.
Yes, we know you have a mental. We know you have a mental block. It's a business plan. It's a business plan. Yes.
But yeah, like, and even with you saying that now, it does resonate. Like maybe that's what it is that I was missing also, is the fact that I never thought about doing a feasibility study to kind of fill in that business plan. When I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this thing's annoying. How do you expect me to know how much money I'm gonna project? I looked at other video guys and they're like, no real projections. Like it's seasonal. That's all we get is seasonal. Restaurants do it all the time. I believe it's fourth quarter they close out. So in that way you file for your losses and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So what I got, I guess that would have been maybe part of the feasibility study I was doing that I didn't know was a feasibility study. Is when I started to look at these things, I was like, all right, nobody makes money all year round. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Sammy said the same thing in your introduction, like, it's a dry spell. Enjoy the dry spell for now, because when it rains, it's gonna flood. And then it's gonna get a little dry again. So and it goes to the same concept. Once we start, is like we slowly acquire this knowledge. I started a business in '08, so let's say it's been about at least 12, 13 something years, and the word feasibility study never really came up. You see what I'm saying? I've hit business plan before I've hit feasibility study. So to me, that's just a part of it. And as the business plan, and I don't want people to get me wrong on this, I do think it's an essential part. It does help you grow. It would help you propel and better define where it is you want to go. So think about a ship, right? So on a ship, it's like on your little boat, it's flat right now. This is your company without your business plan, without the feasibility study. As we learn, what we do is that we then realize if we had a point, we tread through the water a little better. You see what I'm saying? But without maybe sailing flat for this amount of time, realize that it's a little harder going this way without it. When we get that information, when I see Chris scooting along a little faster, and I'm like, whoa, Chris, how you doing that? So Chris is like, well, I got the point.
Mhm.
And then I see Shalana, I'm like, but Shalana's boat is like mine, but Shalana's still going faster. How does this happen, Shalana? Shalana, tell me how you doing this. And then Shalana's like, well, I had a sail. And I'm like, oh. So if I get the point from Chris and I say like Shalana, I'm gonna be moving a lot faster. And that's where it is. I kind of see like what we're talking about, like the economics, like where it really kind of comes together. It comes together in us sharing the knowledge. It comes with us growing as we traverse this entrepreneurial trip. Because if you're still doing the same thing you did 10 years ago, I guarantee you your business has failed and it's not a business. I don't know how you're making money, but it's not going to work because every day we learn something new and every day we try to apply something more. So I'm not going to eat up no more of Shalana's time. I'm going to like get my coffee, get my one-handed device, and I'm going to sip and listen.
I think you kind of summed it up really well.
Oh, look at that.
Whoa, hold on.
Think about just
Chris, it only took us 1, 2, 3 in order for me to get there. Season 1, Series 2, Episode 3. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
So for sake of time, we're going to skip over the profit part. I'm just going to quickly just touch on third party opinion as an external motivator or mindset piece, and just talk about that there are positive and negative third party opinions. So just to name a couple that I had jotted down here, that some positive opinions or third party opinions would be from mentors that you have chosen, from industry experts, from focus groups that you have coordinated, from trusted advisors, and from your customers. Negative third-party opinions would be basically the masses, social media trolls, and really anybody who is talking more about you, if they don't know you or don't have your best interest at heart, as opposed to talking about your product and service. If your product and service is something that they're criticizing, I think that's valuable to listen to. You're not going to please everybody, certainly, but it's good to hear customer feedback. But if people are just saying like, oh, you can't do this, you can't make it, and it's more about you than your product or business, that is the kind of third-party opinions that I highly recommend tuning out. So I'll start off with just Shalonda here. Do you have any thoughts on third-party opinions?
Actually, I think you summed it up really well, Chris. The third party opinions, getting that feedback loop and matching it and analyzing it against your feasibility study with the market, right? Is really going to give you two really good, solid data points to integrate into your business plan and really determine whether what you're visualizing as the course for your business to travel on needs to be adjusted or pivoted or calibrated. Those are really two good data points. So that's all I really have to add. We need to do a deeper dive into this
definitely.
conversation for sure. Yeah.
This was a heavy one.
Yeah. But I'll toss it over to Tristan. Come on, Tristan, what you got?
Let me catch it real quick. So the only thing I'm gonna tell you is the same thing I've been saying, is that I wouldn't listen to people that hasn't been doing it. That's always gonna try to tell you how to do it. Chris Solana already summed it up pretty much. And that's just it. Definitely get your mentors. Definitely get in that network pool. You just got to be selective as to the information we take and how it is that we apply it, because everybody's information, everybody's way might not suit our needs. And definitely stay away from those people that don't do it, that's going to be telling you how to do it. So, Chris, back to you.
I think this is already my first recycled quote for the podcast. But there's a Chinese proverb that says, he who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it. And so there's your third-party opinions there. So with that said, this wraps up another conversation of the Entrepreneur's Trip. We want to thank our team, our collaborators, and especially you, our listeners, for making this trip possible. Visit our website, theentrepreneurs.trip.com, and subscribe to receive our blogs today. Until our next trip, be well and take care.
Take care, guys.